This is the all-new Cloudmonster Hyper. It's taller than the also new Cloudmonster 2. It removes the speedboard entirely, and it introduces Pebax as part of the midsole. But it also comes at a hefty $220 price. So is it worth it? It's time to lace up the Cloudmonster Hyper and take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the On Cloudmonster Hyper. But before I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, no one's paying me to make this video or to include this shoe in this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the On Cloudmonster Hyper, and let's start with the specs. This is a 37.5 millimeter stack height shoe with a 6 millimeter drop, giving us 31.5 millimeters of stack height in this rather complex midsole that we have in here. So there's a couple of things going on. This white foam that we have in the forefoot, that's Pebax, and it kind of looks like there's kind of like a front side and back side of the shoe, but it's a little bit more complex than that. If you were able to kind of take the shoe apart, you would see that it's more of kind of like almost like a paddle type of design, where there's a large round white piece of Pebax foam that also does extend quite a bit into the further back portions of the shoe. It doesn't extend all the way to the back, but it gets pretty close. And then this orange foam that's around it kind of sits as a carrier. It's very thin in the forefoot, but then in the back, where there's kind of more room for the clouds or these holes and channels that are in this midsole, that's where there is kind of the more traditional foam. Now, On is calling this white foam Helion HF, and that's the Pebax material. And then the regular orange colored foam, their normal foam, is just called Helion. Now, they also have done away with the speedboard, which is kind of like a semi-rigid element that has been a feature in a lot of On shoes. I've been wanting On to get rid of speedboards entirely for several years now, and they're starting to do that in some of their shoes, mostly in shoes that have a slightly different type of Cloud Tech design, Cloud Tech phase, but I'm happy to see it happening in this shoe here, because typically those speedboards for me make the overall foam experience seem a lot more firm than they otherwise might be, and you're really getting a chance to see more of what those Cloud Tech phase or these holes in the midsole do and what these midsole materials get to do. Now moving to the outsole, we have a decent amount of rubber coverage, and it's differentially thick too. So in some of the more higher wear areas, like in the back parts of the outer heel, that's where the rubber outsole is really thick, and then we do have a decent amount that's providing both durability and traction on the bottom of the shoe. Moving to the upper, we have a relatively breathable polyester material that's here. The tongue is very thin. There's a little bit of padding right where the laces are intersecting on the top of the foot to provide a little bit of protection from any pressure. And then there is a very restrained amount of padding in the back of this heel cup. As far as the recycled content that's going on in this shoe, On tells us that it's 22% recycled material, with the majority of that coming from the polyester upper materials that they're using. 92% of the polyesters in this shoe are recycled. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a very respectable weight. I believe this is the lightest Cloudmonster that On has ever made, coming in at 272 grams or 9.5 ounces. Now that we talked about the paper specs, let's talk about what happens when you actually get it out on the roads. For me, I would say that the On Cloudmonster Hyper delivers a very nice max cushion experience. The fit on the shoe is really quite wonderful. I went true to size, and that was the perfect size for me. And I've been really enjoying this shoe on very relaxed runs, recovery run paces, and even easy paces have been really nice. I feel like I'm using more of the entire length of the shoe, and I'm getting a little bit of a firmer sensation where just the regular Helion is. And then even when I pick up the pace a little bit more than that, if I'm getting kind of into that zone 2, zone 3 type of running, something that's a little bit faster than easy pace, but maybe not quite as fast as Marathon Effort. I feel like that's where I'm landing squarely in the forefoot of the shoe, and I'm getting much more of that Pebax experience. It gives me a really nice sense of bounce in the shoe that I feel like I could run in for a very long time. That being said, this is not a shoe that I would really take for any sort of extended speed workout or anything that's very fast. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it's almost too comfortable or too mushy. I really wish that On wouldn't have put any clouds in the forefoot of the shoe. Frankly, in addition to saying that On should get rid of the speedboard for years, I've also been saying I really wish On would, at least in some models, I wish they would put no clouds in the midsole at all. And I feel like this would have been a really good opportunity and a really good justification for why did they choose to put Pebax in the shoe and why are they getting rid of the clouds? And that's because the foam can do a lot of what the clouds would do. But the combination of a Pebax foam and even little clouds that they do have in that forefoot, I feel like started to work against me as I wanted to move faster in the shoe. And now when we all think about Pebax, we tend to think about how Pebax is in our favorite carbon plated racers, and we tend to equate it with the ability to move really quickly and have a lot of comfort at the same time. Now I'm getting a lot of comfort, but I'm not getting moved quickly at the same time from this, because not only do you have the squish and compression of the Pebax foam in there, but then you're also having the compression of the clouds. And I feel like the Pebax doesn't have anything to push off against, or not enough to push off against in terms of the decompression. And so I feel like even though I'm putting a lot into the shoe when I'm trying to run fast, I'm not getting a lot back. So it feels like it's a almost too mushy experience to use for any real kind of speed work. But for anything that's going to be in the easy plus, in that steady kind of range, all the way down to recovery ranges, I feel like the shoe is really comfortable and very pleasant, really agreeable to run in. It's a shoe that I've been reaching for with excitement. I've just really been enjoying running in the shoe. I feel like it moves really well, and I do feel like it's the best expression of Cloudmonster. Those kind of two incongruous terms being smashed together seem to work and make a lot of sense in the On Cloudmonster Hyper. Now let's wrap up the video by talking about some pairing options, shoes that I think would go well with the On Cloudmonster Hyper in your closet. And then we could talk about the buying guide and some alternatives that you might also want to consider, or that you're probably also already considering when you're thinking about the On Cloudmonster Hyper. First, for the pairing options, I think that if you're picking up the On Cloudmonster Hyper, you're going to be using this as your kind of max cushion shoe and as your daily trainer as well. So the two other shoes that I think would go well with it are kind of a speed day shoe, a workout shoe, something that's not necessarily a racing shoe, but something that has a little bit more of that kind of excitement at faster speeds, and then also, of course, a racing shoe. So for the first shoe, the workout shoe, I'm going to refer you to the Puma DV8 Nitro 2. This is still one of my favorite shoes, especially for the use case of a shoe that I reach for only for workouts, but that is not necessarily a racing shoe. So whether it's a fartlek or a bunch of mile repeats or a long run with a lot of fast marathon effort miles in them, I feel like the Puma DV8 Nitro 2 can handle it very well. It's very fun to run in. It does have a carbon fiber plate, and at least a part of it is made out of Puma's premier racing foam. And so I feel like it's going to be a really fun but also durable shoe that you're gonna be able to take for a lot of those workouts. And then for your racing shoe, I'm going to suggest the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2. This is also another unusual looking shoe that I think will kind of make a lot of sense together with the On Cloudmonster Hyper and its unusual appearance. This shoe has a very dramatic bevel at the back part of the heel, and it almost has kind of like a complete rocker shape from back to front. It combines it with a very lightweight, very responsive racing foam. And I feel like the person who's really enjoying the way that the forefoot of the Cloudmonster Hyper responds is going to enjoy how racing in the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2 feels. Now let's talk about the buying guide and some alternatives. The On Cloudmonster Hyper is available now, and it comes in at $220, and I think that is just absolutely way too high for what you're getting in this shoe. Let's take a look at some of the competition and see where it stacks up. Now I think this next shoe that I'm going to talk about is not probably the closest shoe I think that delivers what the On Cloudmonster Hyper is trying to deliver, but I feel like it's the shoe that you guys are wondering about most. And that's gonna be the Asics Super Blast. This is a shoe that has a bunch of Asics racing foam in it, and it has a bottom layer of FF Blast Plus, which is kind of their highest end daily training foam. So they've got racing foam and daily training foam in a package put together with no carbon fiber plate. It's lightweight, it's fun, and it's a shoe that I like to run at kind of zone 3 or marathon pace effort running. It's not really a shoe I love for super easy days, but it is a shoe that I love to pick up the pace in and log a bunch of faster miles in. I feel like a lot of you guys are looking at the On Cloudmonster Hyper and thinking that it's gonna be the same. And I'm not exactly feeling that. I feel like they do overlap quite a bit in kind of like that moderate or slightly slower than moderate effort running. But I feel like the On Cloudmonster Hyper is a little bit more geared towards easy and recovery running, and the Super Blast is a little bit better at going a little bit faster. The Super Blast started out, I believe, at $225 in retail, but it's since had a price reduction, not a sale, but like a permanent reduction in price, down to $200. I still feel like if it lost another $5 to $10, it would be even better. But I feel like that's also going to be a better shoe to look at if you're looking for a big, tall, comfy shoe that you can run easy runs, but also a lot of faster long runs in as well. And then the next shoe that I think we have to talk about when we're talking about the Cloudmonster Hyper is the Cloudmonster 2. Now this shoe only came out a couple of months before the Cloudmonster Hyper and has very similar things going on. It has two different types of midsole foams in here. It does have a little bit of a speedboard, but it's a nylon speedboard, so it's a lot more flexible than other speedboards have been from On. And there's some other like slight changes to it as well. There's a little bit more padding in the heel cup. The shape of the heel cup is a little bit different as well. And this one is geared a little bit more squarely towards easy running and feeling even that much more comfortable in the shoe. But I feel like there's a lot of overlap in what these shoes are trying to do. They have the same name. They share the same, I guess, DNA, if you want to talk about it in those kinds of terms. And the On Cloudmonster 2 comes in at $180. Now, it is a little bit heavier and it doesn't quite move quickly as well as the On Cloudmonster Hyper does, but I'm not sure that the On Cloudmonster Hyper is worth $40 more than the already expensive $180 that the On Cloudmonster 2 comes in at. And it just also begs a lot of questions. Why did they release these two shoes in the same year, but not at the same time so that customers can really have options? I feel like it was kind of like almost like a bait and switch for people that liked Cloudmonster 1 and were looking for an update. They got the Cloudmonster 2, and then a couple months later, they got the Cloudmonster Hyper, or at least that was dangled in front of them. They probably didn't want to pick up also the Cloudmonster Hyper because you just paid $180 for the Cloudmonster 2. So the rollout was a little bit confusing. The mere existence of both of them in the lineup is really confusing as well. I would have loved if the On Cloudmonster Hyper were just the On Cloudmonster 2. I'm not really seeing enough of a difference between these two shoes that both of them need to be in the lineup. But if you're looking at both, and depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for something that's comfy and can go a little bit faster sometimes, maybe the On Cloudmonster Hyper makes sense. But at $220, I feel like even for On, it's too expensive. So if you're just looking for a really fun cloud experience from On, then I feel like the On Cloudmonster 2 is something that I'd be more likely to direct you towards. So those are my thoughts on the On Cloudmonster Hyper. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?